Lily wiped the counter for the third time in 10 minutes, glancing at the old clock on the wall. 11:45. Any minute now he would walk through that door. Just like he had every single night for the past 3 months. She couldn't explain why she looked forward to seeing him. Maybe it was because most of her late-night customers were drunk college kids or tired office workers grabbing quick coffee before heading home. But this man was different. He always came alone, always ordered the same thing, and always left the exact same tip down to the penny. The bell above the door chimed, and there he was. Tall, probably in his early 30s, wearing another one of those expensive-looking dark suits. Even at midnight, his clothes looked perfect, like he had just stepped out of a business meeting. But his eyes told a different story. They looked tired, heavy with something she couldn't quite figure out. "Good evening," Lily said with a smile, already reaching for the Colombian coffee beans. "The usual?" He nodded and walked to his corner table. Table 7. Always table 7. She watched him set down his leather briefcase and pull out his phone, checking it quickly before sliding it into his pocket. Lily had tried to start conversations with him before, small talk about the weather, asking how his day went, commenting on how late he worked. He always answered politely, but never offered more than necessary. After a while, she stopped trying so hard and just enjoyed the comfortable silence. Tonight felt different, though. As she prepared his coffee, she noticed he kept looking toward the window. His usual confident posture seemed shaky, and he kept running his hand through his dark hair. "Here you go," she said, placing the coffee in front of him. "Extra shot, no sugar, just how you like it." "Thank you," he said. And for the first time in months, he actually looked at her when he spoke. Really looked at her. Lily felt her cheeks warm up. She had always thought he was handsome, but up close she could see the small details. The way his eyes had tiny lines around them, probably from stress rather than laughter. The small scar on his chin. The way he held himself like someone carrying a heavy weight. "Long day?" she asked, surprising herself with the question. He paused with the coffee cup halfway to his lips. "You could say that." She waited, hoping he might say more, but he just took a sip and pulled out his laptop. The conversation was over, just like always. Lily went back to cleaning, but she kept stealing glances at table 7. Tonight, instead of working on his computer, he was staring at a small photograph. She couldn't see what it was from where she stood, but she watched him touch the corner of the picture gently like it was made of glass. The cafe was unusually quiet tonight. Usually she had at least a few other customers scattered around, but tonight it was just her and him. The silence felt different, more personal somehow. "Can I ask you something?" she said, walking over with the coffee pot. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to." He looked up, surprised. "Why do you come here every night? I mean, there are probably fancier coffee places closer to wherever you work." For a moment, she thought he might not answer. He closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, really considering her question. "It's quiet here," he said finally. "Peaceful. That's it? Sometimes that's enough." There was something in his voice that made her heart ache a little. Loneliness. She recognized it because she felt it too sometimes, especially during these late-night shifts when the city felt empty and everyone else was home with their families. "I get that," she said. "Sometimes the quiet is the only thing that makes sense." He looked at her again, and this time she saw surprise in his eyes, like he wasn't used to people understanding what he meant. "What about you?" he asked. "Why do you work the night shift? Most people your age are out having fun on weeknights." Lily laughed, but not because it was funny. "Someone has to keep the coffee flowing for people like you. Besides, I like the night shift. Gives me time to think. Think about what? Dreams, mostly. Plans for the future." She gestured around the small cafe. "This place belonged to my grandmother. She left it to me when she passed away last year. I'm trying to figure out how to make it work, how to honor what she built here." "It's a good place," he said, and she could tell he meant it. "Your grandmother would be proud." Those simple words hit her harder than she expected. She felt tears threatening and quickly looked away. "Sorry," she said. "I don't usually talk this much to customers." "Don't apologize. It's nice to have a real conversation for once." "What do you mean?" "Most of my conversations are about numbers and deadlines and problems that need fixing. It's been a while since someone asked me about anything that actually mattered." Lily wanted to ask what kind of work he did, but something held her back. Maybe it was better not to know. Maybe that's why he came here, to be someone other than whoever he was during the day. Well, she said, you're always welcome here. Table 7 will be waiting for you. You noticed I always sit here? I notice a lot of things. She felt bold suddenly. Like how you always check that photo before you start working. And how you never answer your phone when it rings here, even though it rings a lot. And how you always leave exactly $4.50, even though the coffee only costs $3.25. He stared at her, and for a second, she worried she had crossed a line. I didn't realize I was so predictable, he said, but he was almost smiling. Everyone has their routines. Makes them feel safe, I think. What's your routine? This, I guess. Work, sleep, repeat. Dream about expanding the cafe someday. Maybe opening a second location. Nothing too exciting. Dreams aren't supposed to be exciting for other people. They're supposed to be exciting for you. There was wisdom in his voice that made her wonder about his age, his life. What had taught him to think that way? His phone started ringing, and like always, he ignored it. But Lily could see the tension return to his shoulders, the peaceful moment slipping away. You should probably take that, she said. It can wait. But it rang again immediately, and this time he sighed and looked at the screen. I should go, he said, closing his laptop and standing up. Thank you for the coffee and the conversation. Same time tomorrow? She asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Same time tomorrow, he confirmed. After he left, Lily found herself staring at table 7. For the first time in 3 months, she knew a little bit about the mysterious man who came for coffee every night. Not his name, not what he did for work, not where he lived. But she knew he was lonely, that he carried something heavy, and that for 45 minutes every night, her little cafe gave him the peace he was looking for. She also knew that she was starting to care about him more than she should, more than was smart for someone who served him coffee and knew almost nothing about his life. But as she turned off the lights and locked up for the night, Lily found herself already looking forward to 11:45 tomorrow, to seeing him walk through that door, to maybe having another real conversation, to being part of whatever routine kept him going. She didn't know that across the city, in a penthouse apartment, he was thinking about her too. 3 weeks had passed since their first real conversation, and something had shifted between them. He still came every night at the same time, still ordered the same coffee, still sat at table 7. But now they talked, not about anything too personal at first. He asked about her day, she asked about his work. He mentioned he worked in management, nothing too specific. She told him about the challenges of running a small business, the late-night deliveries, the difficult customers who complained about everything. Tonight was different, though. The moment Lily saw him walk through the door, she knew something was wrong. His usually perfect suit was wrinkled, his tie was loose, and his hair looked like he had been running his hands through it all day. Rough day? She asked as she prepared his coffee. You could say that, he said, slumping into his chair. Actually, rough week. Rough month, if I'm being honest. She brought his coffee over, and instead of walking away like usual, she sat down across from him. Want to talk about it? He looked surprised. In all the weeks he had been coming here, she had never sat down with him. Always kept things professional, friendly, but distant. You don't have to listen to my problems, he said. I want to. Besides, it's a slow night. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. Have you ever felt like you're drowning, but everyone around you thinks you're swimming perfectly? Lily felt her heart squeeze. Every day since my grandmother died, I'm sorry. I didn't know. It's okay. But yes, I know that feeling. Everyone thinks I'm doing great with the cafe, that I have it all figured out. They don't see me crying in the back room when the bills pile up or when I burn a batch of muffins because I'm too tired to think straight. Exactly. He looked up at her, and she could see the relief in his eyes at being understood. Everyone expects me to have all the answers, to never make mistakes, to keep everything running smoothly no matter what. But sometimes I feel like I'm just making it up as I go along. Aren't we all? That made him smile, a real smile this time. I suppose we are. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Lily found herself studying his face, noticing details she had missed before. The way his eyes crinkled slightly when he smiled. The small dimple in his left cheek. The fact that he had really nice hands. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. The photo you always look at before you start working. Is it family? His expression grew soft. My daughter. She's 6. Lily felt her heart do a little flip. She hadn't expected that. What's her name? Sophie. She's the best thing in my life, but also the scariest responsibility I've ever had. Scary how? Her mother died 2 years ago. Cancer. It was just the two of us now, and I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up. That I'm working too much. That I'm not giving her what she needs. That I'm failing her every single day. The pain in his voice was so raw that Lily reached across the table without thinking and covered his hand with hers. I'm sorry. That must be incredibly hard. It is. Sophie is amazing, so smart and funny and brave. But I can see that she misses having a mother, and I don't know how to fill that gap. I work late because the business demands it, but then I feel guilty for not being home to read her bedtime stories. What does she think about you working so late? She doesn't complain, which makes it worse somehow. She just accepts that Daddy has to work. Sometimes I come home and find drawings she's made for me, pictures of us together, and I realize I'm missing all these little moments that I can never get back. Lily squeezed his hand gently. You're not failing her. The fact that you worry about it so much proves you're a good father. How can you be so sure? Because bad fathers don't lose sleep over whether they're doing enough. They don't carry pictures of their kids everywhere they go. And they don't work late into the night to provide for them. He turned his hand over so they were palm to palm. Thank you. I needed to hear that. What kind of business do you manage? She asked, curious now about this man who was clearly carrying so much weight. It's complicated, he said, pulling his hand back. Family business. Lots of pressure, lots of people depending on the decisions I make. Before Lily could ask more questions, her part-time employee Jake burst through the back door. Looking frazzled, Lily, I'm so sorry, but I can't work tonight. My girlfriend's in the hospital and I need to be there. Of course, go, she said immediately. Is she okay? We think so, but I need to be with her. I'm really sorry about leaving you alone on a Friday night. After Jake left, Lily looked around the cafe with growing panic. Friday nights were always busy, especially after midnight when the bars closed and people wanted coffee to sober up. She couldn't handle the rush by herself. Problem? He asked. Big problem. Friday nights get crazy and I can't run this place alone when it gets busy. As if on cue, a group of college students walked in, followed by two couples who looked like they were coming from a late dinner. Then more people, until suddenly the cafe was fuller than it had been all week. Lily rushed behind the counter trying to take orders while making drinks, but she was quickly falling behind. The customers were getting impatient and she could feel sweat beading on her forehead. Excuse me, her regular customer said, appearing beside her behind the counter. Let me help. You don't have to. I want to. He rolled up his sleeves and washed his hands. What do you need me to do? You know how to work an espresso machine? I worked in a coffee shop through college. It's been a while, but I think I remember. For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side. He took orders while she made the more complicated drinks, and somehow they found a rhythm. He was surprisingly good with customers, charming and efficient, and Lily found herself stealing glances at him as he worked. There was something different about seeing him like this. Out of his usual spot at table 7, sleeves rolled up, actually smiling and laughing with customers. He seemed younger, more relaxed, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. You're really good at this, she said during a brief lull. So are you. Your grandmother taught you well. How do you know she taught me? Because you make coffee the same way my grandmother cooked. With love. You can taste the difference. When the last customer left around 2 in the morning, they both collapsed against the counter. Exhausted but laughing. I can't believe we survived that, Lily said. We make a good team. She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just attraction anymore. This was something deeper, something that scared her because she barely knew anything about his real life. I should pay you for tonight, she said. Don't be ridiculous. It was actually fun. Fun? You have a strange definition of fun. I haven't had fun in a long time. Tonight reminded me what it feels like. They cleaned up together in comfortable silence, and Lily found herself not wanting the night to end. When everything was done, he gathered his things to leave. Same time tomorrow? She asked. Actually, he said, hesitating at the door. Would you like to have dinner sometime? A real dinner, not just coffee at midnight? Lily's heart jumped. I'd like that. Sunday? I could pick you up after you close? Okay. After he left, Lily stood in her empty cafe replaying the entire night. She had learned more about him in these few hours than in all their previous conversations combined. He was a father, a widower, someone carrying enormous responsibility, and somehow, despite the mystery that still surrounded him, she was falling for him. She just hoped she wasn't making a huge mistake. Their first real date had been perfect. He took her to a quiet restaurant on the other side of town, somewhere cozy and intimate where they could actually talk without interruptions. Lily learned that his name was David, that he loved old movies, and that he made Sophie pancakes every Sunday morning in the shape of animals. But now, a week later, something had changed. For 3 nights in a row, table 7 had remained empty. No phone call, no explanation, just silence. Lily found herself watching the door every few minutes, hoping to see his familiar figure walk through. She tried to tell herself it didn't matter. They had only been on one date. Maybe he had decided she wasn't worth his time. Maybe he had gotten back together with an ex-girlfriend. Maybe he had simply lost interest, but deep down she was worried. The David she had gotten to know wasn't the type to just disappear without a word. On the 4th night, she was cleaning tables when the door chimed at exactly 11:45. Her heart jumped, but when she looked up, it wasn't David. It was a woman in an expensive coat looking around the cafe like she had never been in a place like this before. "Excuse me," the woman said. "I'm looking for David Chen. I was told he comes here regularly. Chen." Lily had never heard his last name before. "I'm sorry, but I don't give out information about customers." "It's important. I'm his assistant, Jessica. There's been a family emergency." Lily felt her stomach drop. "Is Sophie okay?" Jessica looked surprised that Lily knew about David's daughter. "Sophie is fine, but David's been dealing with some crisis at work. He asked me to come here and explain in case you were wondering where he was." "What kind of crisis?" "I probably shouldn't say too much, but there's been some trouble with a major business deal. David hasn't slept in 3 days. I've never seen him this stressed." After Jessica left, Lily couldn't concentrate on anything. She kept thinking about David, wondering what kind of pressure he was under, wishing there was something she could do to help. The next night, he finally came back. The moment she saw him, Lily knew something was seriously wrong. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie was crooked, and he had dark circles under his eyes that made him look like he hadn't slept in weeks. "David," she said, rushing over to him. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry I haven't been here," he said, collapsing into his usual chair. "Things have been complicated. Your assistant came by. She said there was some kind of work crisis." He looked up sharply. "Jessica was here? She was worried about you. Said you haven't slept in days." David rubbed his face with his hands. "I should have called you. I wanted to, but everything just spiraled out of control so fast." "What happened?" "Work stuff. Nothing I can't handle, but it's been consuming everything. I haven't even been home to see Sophie properly. She's staying with my sister until things calm down." Lily sat down across from him, studying his face. "What kind of work do you do that causes this much stress?" For a moment, she thought he was going to tell her. His mouth opened, then closed, and she could see him struggling with something. "It's complicated," he said finally. "That's what you always say." "Because it is." Before Lily could push further, David's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. "I have to take this," he said, standing up and walking toward the back of the cafe. Lily tried not to listen, but his voice carried in the quiet space. "No, absolutely not. We can't move forward with that timeline. I don't care what the board says. Find another way. Because I said so, that's why." The conversation went on for 15 minutes, and with each passing moment, David's voice became more tense, more authoritative. This wasn't the gentle man who talked about making pancakes for his daughter. This was someone used to giving orders, someone with real power. When he came back to the table, he looked even more exhausted. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should probably go." "David, wait." Lily reached across the table and grabbed his hand. "Talk to me. Really talk to me. What's going on?" "I can't." "Why not?" "Because you'll look at me differently. Try me." He stared into her eyes for a long moment, and she could see him wrestling with himself. Finally, he pulled his hand off. I have to go. Sophie needs me." After he left, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was something big he wasn't telling her. The phone conversation she had overheard didn't sound like someone who just managed a family business. It sounded like someone who was in charge of something much bigger. The next evening, everything changed. David walked in at his usual time, but tonight he wasn't alone. With him was a little girl with dark hair and big brown eyes wearing pink pajamas and carrying a stuffed elephant. "Lily, this is Sophie," David said, looking embarrassed. "Sophie, this is the nice lady I told you about." "Hi," Sophie said shyly, hiding behind her father's leg. "Hi, sweetie," Lily said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. "It's so nice to finally meet you. Your daddy talks about you all the time." "Really?" Sophie perked up. "Really. He showed me pictures, and you're even prettier in person." Sophie giggled and stepped out from behind David. "Daddy says you make the best coffee in the whole city." "I don't know about that, but I do make pretty good hot chocolate. Would you like some?" While Lily prepared Sophie's hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, she listened to David explain. His babysitter had canceled at the last minute, and his sister was out of town. He didn't want to break his routine, and Sophie had been curious about the cafe. "She never sleeps well when I'm stressed," David said quietly. "Figured a change of scenery might help." Sophie charmed Lily completely. She was smart and funny, just like David had said. But there was also something mature about her, like she had grown up faster than she should have. When David stepped outside to take yet another urgent phone call, Sophie moved closer to Lily. "Daddy's been really sad lately," she whispered. "He thinks I don't notice, but I do." "What makes you think he's sad?" "He gets this look on his face like when Mommy was really sick. And he stays up all night looking at his computer. I'm sure he's just worried about work stuff." "Maybe. But I think he's lonely too. He doesn't have many friends." Through the window, Lily watched David pace back and forth, speaking rapidly into his phone. Another expensive car had pulled up, and a man in a suit was approaching David with a tablet and papers. "Sophie," Lily said carefully, "what does your daddy do for work?" "He runs a really big company. People are always calling him and asking him to fix things." "What kind of company?" "I don't really understand it. Something about buildings and money. But Daddy says it's important because lots of people depend on him." Lily felt something cold settle in her stomach. A big company. Lots of people depending on him. The expensive suits, the constant phone calls, the stress that seemed to consume him. As she watched through the window, the man in the suit was showing David something on the tablet that made David's shoulders slump. Then she saw something that made her heart stop. The man pointed to the tablet screen, and Lily could just make out what looked like a news article. The headline was too small to read, but the photo was clear enough. It was David, wearing a suit even more expensive than the ones he wore to the cafe, standing in front of a gleaming office building with Chen Industries written across the front. Lily's world tilted. Chen Industries. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. It was one of the biggest companies in the country, worth billions of dollars. And David wasn't just an employee. He was David Chen, the CEO, the man whose face was sometimes on the business pages of the newspaper. "The billionaire, Miss Lily." Sophie's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" "You look funny." Lily forced herself to smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just thinking about something." But she wasn't fine. For months she had been serving coffee to one of the most powerful men in the city. She had been falling for someone who could probably buy her entire building without thinking twice about it. When David came back inside, Lily could barely look at him. Everything made sense now. The expensive clothes, the constant phone calls, the way he talked about responsibility and pressure. The reason he couldn't sleep, the reason he came to her cafe looking for peace. "Everything okay?" David asked, noticing her strange expression. "Fine," Lily said, but her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Sophie had fallen asleep in the booth, curled up with her stuffed elephant. David looked at his daughter with such tenderness that Lily's heart ached. "I should get her home," he said softly, as he gathered Sophie in his arms. Lily watched this billionaire CEO transform back into just a father carrying his sleeping child. But the damage was done. The carefully built illusion of their equal relationship had shattered completely. "Lily?" David paused at the door. "Is everything really okay? You seem different." "I'm fine," she lied. "Just tired." But as she watched him walk away, carrying Sophie to what was probably a car that cost more than Lily made in a year, she knew that everything had changed. She wasn't falling for David, the single father who came to her cafe for peace. She had been falling for David Chen, billionaire CEO, without even knowing it. And now she had no idea what to do with that information. For 3 days, Lily avoided making eye contact when David came in for his coffee. She served him with polite professionalism, the same way she treated any other customer. No more sitting at his table, no more personal conversations, no more warm smiles. David noticed immediately, but he didn't push. He accepted his coffee with a quiet thank you and sat at table 7, glancing up at her occasionally with confused, hurt eyes. Lily hated herself for the distance she was creating, but she couldn't help it. Every time she looked at him, all she could think about was the news articles she had spent hours reading online. David Chen, worth over $2 billion. David Chen, who had taken over his family's company at 28 and turned it into an empire. David Chen, who lived in a penthouse that had been featured in architecture magazines. She felt stupid, naive. How had she not figured it out sooner? All the signs had been there. The expensive clothes, the way he carried himself, the constant important phone calls. She had been so focused on the tired, lonely man who came for coffee that she had missed the obvious truth. On the 4th night, David finally confronted her. "Lily," he said as she set his coffee down. "What's wrong? You've been acting strange all week." "Nothing's wrong," she said, not meeting his eyes. "Just busy. Look at me." Something in his voice made her glance up. His expression was concerned, almost desperate. "Please," he said. "Talk to me." "What did I do wrong?" Lily felt her resolve cracking. The pain in his voice was real, and despite everything, she still cared about him. But the hurt and confusion of the past few days came rushing out. "You lied to me," she said quietly. "I never lied to you. You told me you managed a family business. You told me it was complicated. You never mentioned that you're David Chen, CEO of Chen Industries, one of the richest men in the country." David's face went pale. "How did you find out?" "Does it matter? The point is, you let me believe you were just some regular guy with a regular job. You let me share my dreams about maybe opening a second cafe someday, while you probably spend more on lunch than I make in a month. That's not fair, isn't it?" Lily's voice was getting louder, and she glanced around the empty cafe, grateful they were alone. "I told you about struggling to pay rent, about working night shifts to make ends meet, about inheriting this place from my grandmother, and trying to keep it alive. And you just sat there, this billionaire, listening to my pathetic little problems there. They weren't pathetic. They were real, and they mattered to me. How can you say that? You could buy this entire building without thinking twice about it. My biggest dreams are probably smaller than your daily expenses." David stood up abruptly. "You think this is about money? What else could it be about? You think I came here every night because I was slumming it? You think I helped you that busy Friday because I was bored and thought it would be fun to play normal person for a few hours? I don't know what to think anymore." David ran his hands through his hair, the gesture so familiar that Lily's heart ached. "I came here because this was the only place where people didn't want anything from me. The only place where I could just be David, not David Chen, the CEO. Do you have any idea what it's like to never know if people like you for who you are or what you can do for them? So you decided to lie about who you were?" "I didn't lie. I just didn't correct your assumptions." "That's the same thing, is it? Because if I had walked in here on that first night and introduced myself as the CEO of Chen Industries, would you have treated me the same way?" Lily wanted to say yes, but the words stuck in her throat. Because honestly, she probably wouldn't have. She would have been intimidated, nervous, trying too hard to impress him. "See?" David said, reading her expression. "That's exactly why I didn't tell you. But you could have told me later, after we got to know each other. After our date, I wanted to. I tried to so many times. But every time I thought about it, I imagined this exact conversation. I imagined you looking at me differently, pulling away, thinking that everything between us was fake, wasn't it?" "No." The word came out fierce and desperate. "Everything I felt, everything I told you was real. More real than anything I've experienced in years." Lily wanted to believe him, but the hurt was too fresh.
"How can I trust anything you say now?"
"Because you know me. You know who I am when I'm here. That person, the one who talks to you about at Sophie and worries about being a good father and helps you serve coffee at midnight. That's the real me. That's who I am when I'm not performing for boards and investors and reporters. But you're still a billionaire. You still live in a completely different world from mine. So what? Does that automatically make me a bad person? No, but it makes this impossible. Lily gestured between them. What kind of future could we possibly have? You with your penthouse and private jets and business empire? And me with my little cafe and my student loans and my secondhand car? I don't care about any of that. Maybe you don't, but I do. I can't be someone's charity case, David. I can't be the poor girl you feel sorry for. Is that really what you think this is? Before Lily could answer, David's phone rang. He ignored it, but it immediately started ringing again. Answer it, Lily said tiredly. I don't want to. Just answer it. David reluctantly picked up the phone. What? No, I told you tomorrow. I don't care what time it is in Tokyo. Fine, give me 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at Lily with frustration. I have to go. There's a crisis with one of our international deals. Of course there is, Lily, please. Can we finish this conversation later? What's the point? You have a company to run, people depending on you, million-dollar decisions to make, and I have coffee to serve and bills to worry about. We're just too different. We're not that different, aren't we? Your phone call was about international business deals. Mine yesterday was from my landlord threatening to raise my rent. David stared at her for a long moment, and she could see the pain in his eyes. So that's it? You're just going to throw this away because I have money? I'm protecting myself from getting hurt worse than I already am. You're hurting yourself and me. And potentially Sophie, who talks about you constantly and keeps asking when she can see her new friend again. That hit Lily like a punch to the stomach. She'd been so focused on her own feelings that she hadn't thought about Sophie, who had nothing to do with any of this. Don't use her against me, she said. I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth. She cares about you and so do I. His phone rang again, more insistent this time. Go, Lily said. Handle your crisis. Save your company. Do whatever billionaire CEOs do. This isn't over, David said as he gathered his things. Yes, it is. After he left, Lily sank into a chair and put her head in her hands. She felt empty, drained, like someone had hollowed her out with a spoon. She kept telling herself she had done the right thing. That a relationship between them was impossible. That she was saving herself from inevitable heartbreak. But as she sat alone in her cafe, the place that had brought them together, all she felt was loss. The man she had fallen for was still the same person, still the tired father who worried about his daughter and found peace in her coffee shop. The problem wasn't that he had changed. The problem was that she couldn't separate the David she cared about from the David Chen, who lived in a world she could never belong to. And maybe that was the real tragedy. Not that he had kept a secret, but that the secret made it impossible for her to believe that what they had was real. Outside, she could see David talking urgently on his phone beside a black car that probably cost more than her entire cafe. Even upset and angry, he looked like he belonged to a different universe. A universe where girls like her were just a curiosity, a temporary escape from the pressures of real life. At least, that's what she told herself as she watched him drive away. 2 weeks passed without David coming to the cafe. Lily told herself she was relieved, but every night at 11:45 she found herself looking toward the door. Table 7 sat empty, and somehow the entire cafe felt different without him there. She threw herself into work, staying busy during the day with supply orders and bookkeeping, anything to keep her mind off the hole his absence had left. But late at night, when the cafe was quiet, she couldn't stop thinking about their last conversation. About the hurt in his eyes when she had pushed him away. Her best friend Maya stopped by on a Tuesday night, took one look at Lily's face and immediately knew something was wrong. You look terrible, Maya said, settling into a booth with her coffee. And don't tell me you're fine because I've known you since high school and you're definitely not fine. I'm fine, Lily said automatically, then sighed. Okay, I'm not fine. This is about Mystery Coffee Guy, isn't it? The one you've been talking about for months? Lily had told Maya about David, but she had never mentioned his real identity. Now the whole story came tumbling out. How he had been coming to the cafe every night, how they had grown close, how she had discovered he was actually a billionaire CEO. Wait, Maya said when Lily finished. You're telling me you've been dating David Chen? The David Chen? The guy who was on the cover of Business Weekly last month? We weren't dating. We went on one date. Lily, are you insane? Do you know how many women would kill to be in your position? That's exactly the problem. I don't want to be just another woman trying to get close to him because of his money. But you didn't know about his money when you started liking him, right? So your feelings were real? Of course they were real, but no buts. If your feelings were real, and his feelings were real, then what's the problem? The problem is that we're from completely different worlds. He's a billionaire, Maya. I run a coffee shop. So? My cousin married a doctor and she's a kindergarten teacher. Different worlds, but they make it work. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Love is love, Lily. Rich or poor. It's about finding someone who gets you, who makes you happy, who you can't imagine living without. That night, alone in the cafe, Maya's words echoed in Lily's head. She found herself thinking about all the moments she and David had shared. The way he had helped her during the busy Friday rush. How he had talked about Sophie with such love and worry. The vulnerability in his voice when he had admitted to feeling like he was drowning. None of that had been about money. It had been about two lonely people finding each other. On Thursday, everything changed. Lily was closing up around 3 in the morning when her phone rang. It was her landlord, Mr. Peterson, and he sounded upset. Lily, I'm sorry to call so late, but I have some bad news. The building has been sold. The new owners want to convert it into luxury condos. You have 30 days to vacate. Lily felt the world tilt around her. 30 days? But my lease, the new owners are buying out all the leases. I'm sorry, kid. I know how much this place means to you. After hanging up, Lily sank to the floor behind the counter and cried. This cafe wasn't just her business, it was her home, her connection to her grandmother, her entire life. She had put everything she had into keeping it running, and now it was gone. The next morning, she started making calls, trying to find a new location. But everything was either too expensive or completely wrong. By afternoon, she was starting to accept that Midnight Beans was going to close forever. That evening, as she was serving what might be one of her last customers, a woman in an expensive suit walked in. She looked around the cafe with the sharp eyes of someone evaluating real estate. Are you Lily Rodriguez? The woman asked. Yes. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I represent an investment group that's interested in helping small businesses like yours relocate and expand. Lily frowned. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in selling. We're not looking to buy. We're looking to invest. We've heard about your situation with the building sale, and we'd like to offer you a solution. Jennifer pulled out a folder full of documents. We can help you find a new location, provide renovation funds, and give you a low-interest loan to get back on your feet. All we ask is that you maintain the character and community feel that makes this place special. Why would you do that? Because businesses like yours are the heart of communities. When places like this disappear, neighborhoods lose their soul. The offer was incredible. Almost too good to be true. But there was something about Jennifer's smile that seemed familiar. Something that reminded Lily of someone else. Can I ask who's funding this investment group? I'm sorry, but our benefactor prefers to remain anonymous. However, I can tell you that they believe very strongly in preserving neighborhood institutions like yours. That night, Lily sat in her cafe reading through the contracts. Everything seemed legitimate, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this mysterious investor wasn't really anonymous at all. On Saturday night, her suspicions were confirmed. Sophie Chen walked through the door at 11:30, wearing a pink coat and carrying her stuffed elephant. Behind her, looking nervous and tired, was David. Hi, Miss Lily, Sophie said with a shy smile. Daddy said we could come see you. Lily's heart clenched. She hadn't realized how much she had missed this little girl. Hi, sweetie, she said, kneeling down. It's so good to see you. Daddy's been really sad, Sophie whispered. He doesn't smile anymore, and he doesn't make pancakes on Sunday. Lily looked up at David, who was standing by the door like he wasn't sure he was welcome. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Lily nodded, and they sat at table 7 while Sophie colored at the next booth. I heard about the building, David said. I'm sorry. Did you also hear about the mysterious investment group that wants to help me? David had the grace to look embarrassed. I might have heard something about that. It was you, wasn't it? I couldn't just stand by and watch you lose everything. This place means too much to you. David, I can't accept that kind of help from you. Why not? Because it would make me feel like a charity case. Like you're trying to buy my forgiveness. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to help someone I care about save something that matters to her. But the money? Forget the money for 1 minute, David said, leaning forward. Just for 1 minute, forget that I have money and you don't. If I were just regular David and I had found a way to help you save your cafe, would you be angry about it? Lily wanted to say yes, but she couldn't. If David had been just a regular guy who had somehow found investors to help her, she would have been grateful, not offended. "That's not fair," she said. "Isn't it? You're punishing me for having the ability to help you. You're so focused on what I have that you can't see why I'm offering it." "Why are you offering it?" "Because I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Lily felt her breath catch. "And because Sophie loves you too," David continued. "And because this cafe is where I learned how to be happy again. It's where I remembered what it felt like to be just a man, not a CEO. It's where I met the woman who made me want to try again." Lily looked over at Sophie, who was watching them with big, hopeful eyes. "I'm scared," Lily admitted. "Of what?" "Of not being enough. Of you getting bored with me when the novelty wears off. Of Sophie deciding she doesn't like me anymore. Of living in your world and never fitting in." David reached across the table and took her hands. "I'm scared too. I'm scared of messing this up, of not being what you need, of my world overwhelming you. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. What if this doesn't work? What if it does?" Lily looked into his eyes and saw the same vulnerable man who had sat in this booth for months, seeking peace in her coffee, and finding something more. The money didn't change who he was inside. It didn't change the way he worried about Sophie or the way he made Lily feel when he smiled at her. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay? Okay, let's try. But I have conditions. Name them. I pay you back for the cafe investment. Every penny with interest, Lily. Every penny, David. I won't be kept. If we're going to do this, we do it as equals." "Okay. What else?" "Sophie comes first. Always. If she's not comfortable with me being around, I step back. She adores you. And I need you to be patient with me when I feel insecure or out of place in your world. Because I probably will a lot. As long as you're patient with me when I mess up or when work gets crazy." Lily smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. "Deal. Deal." Sophie had abandoned her coloring and was now standing beside their table. "Does this mean you're going to be my new mommy?" Lily and David both blushed. "We're going to take things slow, sweetheart," David said. "But Lily is going to be around a lot more." "Good," Sophie said, climbing into Lily's lap. "Daddy needs someone to take care of him. He's terrible at taking care of himself." 6 months later, Midnight Beans reopened in a beautiful new location with twice the space and a small section dedicated to children's activities. Sophie had her own special table where she did homework after school, while David worked in the corner booth that had become their regular spot. The cafe was busier than ever, but somehow it maintained the intimate, peaceful feeling that had drawn David there in the first place. Late at night, after the last customer left, Lily and David would sit together planning their future, talking about dreams that now seemed possible. David had learned to balance his work demands with his personal life, and Lily had learned that love wasn't about having equal bank accounts. It was about building something together, supporting each other's dreams, and creating a family. On their wedding day, they held the reception at the cafe, surrounded by friends and family and the customers who had become part of their story. Sophie was the flower girl, beaming with pride at having helped bring her 2 favorite people together. And at midnight, when the last guest had gone home, David and Lily sat at table 7 with 2 cups of coffee, planning the rest of their lives together.